We are going to be looking at some disturbing videos, strange and odd news stories, and as always, let's go ahead and get right into today's video. So if you don't know by now, Donald Trump and Elon Musk, they are currently in what is commonly referred to as a BBB, a big beautiful beefer. But like I said on my other channel, Hours of Horror, and if you're not subscribed to me on that channel already, please feel free to do so because I plan to do something special on that channel. I feel like this beef, I feel like this rift is manufactured, that it's some kind of big distraction. Because what's weird is that all the stuff that Elon Musk has been posting on his X account is all the stuff that the public is already aware of. You know what's interesting, and I didn't catch this before, but the very last interview that Elon Musk had before he was seen with that black eye, they had shown during the interview his statue, and on his statue, you can see something on the right eye, the same exact eye where he had the bruise. So there's something more to this eye thing than meets the eye. It's just so eerie, right? Like the very last interview he had before he's seen with this black eye, the statue of him also looks like there's something going on with the right eye. I had to edit that in because I just noticed that. That is very interesting. But going back to what I was saying about how he's trying to expose Trump on his X account, for example, he goes to say that Trump's name is in the files, but we already know this. We're already aware of this. Then he goes ahead and reposts this quote, a quote that, again, the public already has knowledge of. And then he goes ahead and posts this video by CNN, a video that the public already knows exists. So all this information that he's sending out is information that if you do not like Donald Trump, you already used it against him. If you do like Donald Trump, you already defended him against. Matter of fact, I'll go ahead and take it one up by saying that this does not make Elon Musk look good whatsoever, because you mean to tell me that he felt some sort of way about this connection, but he looked the other way until it personally impacted him, it personally affected him, and now he wants to call Donald Trump out. But this whole thing is getting even sillier because now we have Trump saying that Elon Musk suffers with Trump derangement syndrome, and now there are calls to deport Elon Musk. And make no mistake about it, this is not me defending Donald Trump. I'm not within the left-right paradigm. And this story, at the end of the day, would be absolutely funny. It would be absolutely hilarious if it wasn't for the bigger picture in the background. And the timing of all this couldn't be more suspicious. Matter of fact, I'll let one of the tech giants, one of the tech CEOs, Geordie Rose, explain what's taking place here.
But they're more like the Lovecraftian great old ones. There are entities that are not necessarily going to be aligned with what we want. So this transition is really massively important for our entire species to navigate. And going back to that thing that Sam Harris was saying, nobody is paying attention. This thing is happening in the background while people bicker about politics and what's going to be in the healthcare plan in the US. And underneath it all is this rising tsunami that, if we're not careful, is going to wipe us all out. So, on that pleasant note, we're hiring people.
So they want to distract us with this rift, the possibility of Elon Musk being deported, and they really want to distract us again with the files, but we know nothing's going to come out of that. So let's just say, for the sake of this video, that this is just one big distraction. The question then happens to be, what are they distracting us from?
Because our primary mission is, in fact, to set a global standard for the world for behavior.
Look, we built PG, which single-handedly stopped the rise of the far right in Europe. We built Foundry, which was used to distribute the vaccine and saved millions of lives globally. And safe means that the other person is scared. That's how you make someone safe.
Originally, your clients were the U.S. government and the CIA.
Yeah, the In-Q-Tel gave us 3 pilots. One with the FBI, one with the agency, and one with a more classified part of the DoD.
Where did the name Palantir come from?
In the Lord of the Rings, there's a globe which allows the forces of good to see what's going on and organize, and that's a Palantir.
So while most of us are distracted by things like the Diddy trial, even though most of us know that Diddy is probably somewhere on another island or an underground bunker, probably right next to Jeff, News is coming out that Trump administration silently employs Palantir to gather personal data of each American, raising privacy data misuse concerns. We also have to remember that the big beautiful bill allows no restrictions to AI, but I'll get into that a little bit later in this video. Continue to read this article from Yahoo Finance. It goes on to say, President Trump's March executive order for federal data sharing is being implemented through Palantir's product Foundry. Although Trump has not publicly discussed this initiative, this platform is already in use by several federal agencies, including the Department of Health and Human Services, as well as the Social Security Administration. But the thing is, it's absolutely no secret they've had our data and information for quite some time and doing who knows what with it. When it comes to Palantir's Foundry, their goal is to merge all of our information into one database to make a very detailed profile on each American citizen. What is even more interesting, and one of the many theories behind this fallout, was that Elon Musk, he was against Palantir and Peter Thiel being involved in this, but come to find out, Palantir's selection as a primary vendor for this project was reportedly influenced by the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, which was being overseen by Tesla and Elon Musk. But the thing is, this is not a left-right issue. Them having our data and information is something that was well known even before Trump, before Biden, even before Obama. So why would they want to distract us away from this now? They don't want us focused on this. They don't want us connecting the dots and how Palantir will be feeding the beast when it comes to our data and information, these detailed profiles. So here's what's interesting. While it sounds like I'm blaming Trump for this, he's actually not the main player here. Matter of fact, anybody who would have taken office is not the main player when it comes to this AI governance, this AI takeover, because this was going to happen regardless. Why do I say that? Well, before Trump signed off on this $500 billion Stargate deal in January of 2025, in July or June of 2024, it was announced to the public that those tech giants were working and creating and spending money on the data center for Stargate in Texas. So while Biden was president and well before Trump had been even elected, these tech giants were spending all this money and time on the data center for Stargate because they knew no matter who was president, this was going to happen anyway. But when Trump was signing off on that $500 billion deal, one of the individuals standing there and the individual that's at the helm of Stargate is Larry Ellison. And Larry Ellison has come out and said this when it comes to AI.
Systems, police body cams, and vehicle dash cams.
Everyone would see it. Your body cams will be transmitting that. The police will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording, watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on.
Because our primary mission is, in fact, to set a global standard for the world for behavior.
Ellison's vision is for AI to analyze data from this network of cameras in real time in an attempt to prevent crime while also tracking and influencing public behavior for a safer society. However, the idea raises serious privacy concerns.
So it's just crazy to me how the same individual who said that he wants AI to govern the citizens of the United States to make sure they're on their best behavior in a very 1984 dystopian society is the same individual at the helm of Stargate and will be getting all this detailed profile information from Palantir. So essentially one giant digital ID, one giant social credit score, things like that. And whether you want a digital ID or not, well, too bad, because again, your detailed profile is being fed into the beast. But this also goes hand in hand with these long-range transportation plans, these smart cities, these AI cities, something that has been in the works for years now. How many people are they going to allow in? They do have a maximum capacity, so how do they know who they're going to allow in? I guess it's based off your social credit score or your digital ID. The higher your social credit score is, the more of a chance you can live in one of these AI cities. But if you have a low social credit score or they don't like your digital ID because it doesn't fit with their agenda or narrative, what happens? Do you just get outcast from society? There is an episode of The Black Mirror which shows some very interesting predictive programming involving social credit scores and what happens to those that have a low credit score. I mean, these are the questions we should be asking. These are the things we should be talking about and focused on, as opposed to this feud. If AI determines it does not like our digital profile and we're not on our best behavior, what happens? There are also content creators that talk about this kind of stuff, talk about things that go against the narrative, go against the grain, that found their channels to be banned, and come to find out all of a sudden, all their channels are restored on YouTube and other social media platforms, and they find it very suspicious. But maybe they are allowing people to now talk about certain things without the risk of being banned. Also, they can build this digital profile. They know exactly who the people are that are speaking out against the system. This is wild. This is absolutely wild to me, how the same man who's like, yeah, we're going to make sure all the American citizens are on their best behavior, is standing up there all in smiles as this $500 billion AI project is being signed. While at the same time, there are bills going out to make sure there is absolutely no regulation on AI whatsoever. What is even crazier is that a lot of people just don't care, and they're not asking these questions because they're giving all their energy to these distraction stories. And while they're being distracted by these stories, they are also being pounded with stories that their data is being breached, that Facebook and all these other organizations are being breached and they're taking user data. So when people hear, oh, the government has your ID and they're making a digital ID and giving you a social credit score, nobody's really going to care because they heard all these stories about how Facebook and all these other organizations already have their data anyway. So now we have all these Republicans speaking out, Republicans who voted for this bill. They are now saying, I wish I didn't vote for this bill because I didn't know the no regulations on AI was in there, which again is just all smoke and mirrors because again, it doesn't matter whether they voted for it or not, it was just going to happen anyway. I mean, we even have individuals like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's been a big supporter of Donald Trump and the big beautiful bill, who's now saying she wants to vote against it and take her vote back because, again, she didn't know what was truly in it and that she didn't know about this whole AI governance. What is funny is that Palantir came out in their defense and they said in a statement on X that the New York Times report is blatantly untrue. The company is not surveilling Americans, CEO Alex Karp told CNBC Thursday. But like always, you gotta watch the wording and how they speak. But take a look at the actual tweet by Palantir and not the shortened version by News and Media. The actual tweet says the recently published article by the New York Times is blatantly untrue. Palantir never collects data to unlawfully surveil Americans. They're not saying they're not collecting data to spy on Americans. What they're saying is they're doing it, but they're not doing it illegally or against the law. But I'm gonna go ahead and share a little bit more about Palantir. When the Palantir CEO Alex Karp is interviewed about the surveillance, look at the mental gymnastics he uses before he finally decides to give an answer.
New York Times has an article. Here's the headline. Trump taps Palantir to compile data on Americans. They paint a pretty Orwellian picture of what you and the Trump administration are doing.
I was walking over here. I picked a random engineer and I said, by the way, we have a contest. Find all the technically absolutely erroneous things in this article in 90 seconds. And I picked a random engineer. I was like, well, how many do you think you could do in 90 seconds? He's like, well, 15, 20. But leaving aside the technical, look, it's probably
wrong.
hard
Is that
for
what you're
them,
saying?
I'm sure. Well, it's not. Well, first of all, on the tech side, it is so ridiculous. I read the New York Times. It's literally like I'm a dyslexic. They might as well be hiring me to do a spelling bee. So maybe they just have friends who are tech bros, but they can't hire on a meritocratic basis. I don't know. So that's up to them. We have a contest. Find all the errors in 90 seconds. I think somebody will find 50 or 60. But the more important thing is we are not surveilling Americans. We are not building a database to surveil. And if you wanted to do that, the last platform in the world you would buy is Palantir. And don't believe me, go look, spend 10 minutes and look at the architecture of our product. 10 minutes.
Reading this article here from Semaphore.com, other Republicans are also speaking out, like Representative Warren Davison, a representative from Ohio. He was quoted as saying it's dangerous when you start combining all those data points on an individual into one database. It really essentially creates a digital ID, and it's a power that history says will eventually be abused. And again, they are making this a left-right issue where there are certain creators out there, certain people who are well known in this type of talk. I think a lot of you know who I'm talking about. They will go on to say that, well, if you bash Palantir, ultimately you're bashing Trump, and ultimately that makes you a liberal. When, again, that's just playing into the game. Anybody that's promoting that talking point is not an individual you should be listening to. Because, again, this is not a left-right issue. This is something that's been happening for quite some time. And if you don't want to go far back into history, just look at the recent comments, again, made by Larry Ellison. Look at the timestamp of when Stargate, the data center for Stargate, was being built.
Why on this day one do you think you decided to do this? I assume you've been working on it for a long time.
We have been working on it for a long time. The first data centers are actually under construction in Texas already, and we'll be turning them over to Sam to start training their next model.
Nobody, and I mean nobody, should be for this. And it's just so crazy how they curate how we talk. We can't even talk about all these crazy weather events and how they're suspicious. We can't talk about how they're spraying things in the skies, like over in the United Kingdom. And I've mentioned this multiple times before. They're spraying Satan in the skies. People are seeing hurricanes nobody's ever seen before, all these weather events. And yet, if you speak out, if you connect certain dots back to weather manipulation, well, now you're a part of this violent extremist group, this violent false flag extremist group who has been apparently threatening the NOAA. And if you're considered to be a part of this group, well, there goes your social credit score and a mark against your digital ID. It is just absolutely infuriating just seeing how much control there is currently on our speech, on our daily lives, and then looking into the future and how much control there will be given the fact, again, they want us on our best behavior. But again, let's not talk about that or focus on that, because we have to focus on what's going on in the Ditter trial and what the Ditter's doing. Or is Elon Musk going to be reported? I guess stay tuned for the next episode of Dragon Ball Z. What is crazy is that it's well known that Peter Thiel has been known for spying. Back in 2012, Palantir quietly embedded itself into the daily operations of the New Orleans Police Department. There were no public announcements, no contracts made available to the city council. Instead, the surveillance company partnered with a local nonprofit to sidestep oversight, gaining access to years of arrest records, licenses, addresses, and phone numbers, all to build a shadowy predictive policing program. This all goes hand in hand with Larry Ellison's dream for the future. The article goes on to say Palantir software mapped webs of human relationships, assigned residents algorithmic risk scores, and helped police generate target lists, all without public knowledge. They were quoted as saying, "We very much like to not be publicly known," a Palantir engineer wrote in an internal email later obtained by The Verge. And there we go. This is why we are being heavily distracted, because Palantir does not want all the attention on it and what it's doing. The article goes on to say, after years spent quietly powering surveillance systems for police departments and federal agencies, the company has rebranded itself as a frontier AI firm, selling machine learning platforms designed for military dominance and geopolitical control. And the same individual, Alex Karp, who said we're not surveilling citizens, goes on to say AI is not a toy, it is a weapon. It will be used to end the lives of people. Now, even Palantir's name is interesting. It goes on to say founded in 2003 with seed funding from QIntel, the CIA's venture arm. Palantir was co-created by Peter Thiel with the goal of applying Silicon Valley's data tools to national security. Its name, a nod to the omniscient crystal balls in The Lord of the Rings, hinted at its ambitions to see everything. For years, it remained mostly behind the scenes, supporting U.S. defense and intelligence operations under layers of classification. But enough about me. I can go on and on about Palantir, Stargate, Larry Ellison, and so forth, but what are other people saying? What are other people who are known to be conservative commentators saying about Palantir? This video comes from the older millennial on TikTok.
This Palantir thing is a great measuring stick of whether or not you're actually a conservative or you're just a Trump sycophant. Because if you're an actual conservative, you don't support this. So let me just say this to any of my fellow conservative creators that are making content supporting this. Like, what the heck? Like, this is pure government favors and overreach. This is not okay. Like, this is just a bullshit way to funnel money to Peter Thiel. But let's be real, I don't want involved in anything to do with our government, and a massive overreach of the privacy of American citizens. This plan is absolute and total dog and should not be supported by anybody who calls themselves a conservative. Like, this is the creation of a database of American citizens' personal information. This is the Patriot Act all over again. Like, let me just express this very clearly. I do not in any way support this proposal, and anyone who likes to call themselves a conservative and does support it, just admit that you'll support the sacrifice of your freedoms and your liberty because Trump did it. We have to be willing to call out bullshit on both sides, and this is epic levels of bullshit.
What I like about this, and this is all not doom and gloom, this video isn't doom and gloom, there is a positivity that comes out of this, is that the public, they are talking and speaking out no matter the side of the aisle that they're on. That people who are well-known conservatives, people who have voted for Trump, can come out and say, yeah, I voted for you, yeah, you're my guy, but I can go on to say that I don't agree with everything you do, and I'm going to call out the things that you do wrong, and that's how it should be. We, the public, should be putting them on their best behavior. It shouldn't be the other way around. Yeah, you got my vote, but best be sure that I and others will make sure you're on your best behavior. And that's how it should be. If you agree with this whole political theater, if you agree with the whole left-right paradigm, even if you're a liberal, you should be able to say, yeah, I voted for you, but at the end of the day, that doesn't mean I automatically agree with everything you're going to do. But again, in my own opinion, this goes much higher than the President of the United States. I'm just glad that the conversation is being stirred. And because the conversation is being stirred by multiple people, no matter if they're Republican or Democrat, and we can all agree on one issue, they don't like that. And here comes the distractions.